mean, in terms of like trying to improve your capacity for a CrossFit, um, you know, if you're looking, if you enjoy running, that would be a way to do it. I think you
Well,
could.
I just mean terms and like program setup, being able to kind of use the percentages and all that for other stuff.
Oh, totally. I mean, you could do, it's a great way to, figure out, what your easy pace or recovery pace or your aerobic, threshold pace should be. Because all you got to do is you go out and do a mile time trial, and then you put your mile time trial into the calculator, into the charts, and it gives you your V dot, and then that, translate into, what your easy run should be, what your marathon pace should be, what your threshold pace should be, what your intervals, what your repetition work should be. So it gives you, those numbers to hit, you know what I mean? And you and I both know that most people, that are running, that are taking it seriously are probably doing a lot of things too hard.
Yeah. I think that goes across the board. I don't think that's just a running thing. I think that's an athlete thing where people are trying to be elite. They're always going to be over pushing unless they have a coach kind of holding the reins back.
Yeah, but like even, I've had, coaches in high school, coaches in college, and, I guess maybe a little bit Coach Joe tried to pull the reins back a little bit, but it wasn't, I needed someone to be like, hey, if you do this, like, there needed to be some sort of serious repercussions of doing things the wrong way, and that was just kind of, when you got 8 guys, 9 guys that are all around the same ability level, like every day turns into a pissing contest, and someone's ready to peacock, and it's just how many races did I leave on the track on a Tuesday or on a fucking easy run on a Thursday because someone was feeling a little frisky, and instead of running 7-minute miles, which I probably should have been, or even slower, we were hammering like 6-minute miles. You know what I mean? Like just killing ourselves.
Unfortunately, dude, I think a lot of that stuff comes with just life experience, right? Because I had you kind of in my ear and some other people in my ear, and unfortunately, I left myself to my own demise and kind of had to figure that out on my own. And now, kind of preaching that to high school wrestlers and college wrestlers and whatnot, it's still the same thing. Like, you can have someone give you the answer, but until you feel it and see it yourself, I don't know if. I guess someone has to find the right words or the right way to get it to come across to you. I think that's it.
Yeah, it's definitely in the approach and how it's presented, and that was, there's a big part of me that is really would really be intrigued to go back into the high school or the college ranks as a coach to try to really, implement everything that I've put myself through and learned over the last, I guess we're going on 7 or 8 years now, and put it all together, and that was a big thing that I took away from it too, was that, not to say that he doesn't necessarily know those things, but it wasn't ever touched on. And, I think a lot of running coaches, they focus specifically on the training aspect of it, the run training specifically, and you have to go to someone else that knows technique, and then you have to go to someone else that knows strength and conditioning, and then there's someone else that knows the nutrition, and it's very rare to find someone that can combine all of those things together and put it together intelligently. So I think that's the biggest. That was the biggest takeaway for me too. Was just, someone asked him about strength training, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's great. We're just really starting to tap into it now. But I guarantee you, like, respect to Jack Daniels, but I guarantee you, he probably doesn't know how to, address someone's squatting issues. You know what I mean, or how that translates over, how squatting in general translates over into running, and how to improve it, how to do it better, or how to improve ankle mobility for squatting, and how that's going to transfer over to running, or what kind of diet is going to be the best for for an endurance athlete. Like, a lot of coaches don't even touch on that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's more than just running too, though. I think that's in a lot of the different areas when you got people who are specializing and someone like that who's specializing in high caliber Olympic athletes. You kind of see that their game is one dimensional. Not that they don't have a good game, but it's strictly towards the sport and not kind of looking out towards the other ways to improve that sport. I mean, we've seen it all across the board, not just running, for sure.
Oh, totally. And that was one thing I remember, when I worked for Pacific Health Labs, and we were like the official sponsor for the USWA or whatever, US Wrestling Coaches Association or whatever it was, and Dr. Portman had a conference call with Dan Gable, and I remember him coming out, and he was just blown away. He's like, man, that guy doesn't know anything. Like, he's like, he didn't even know what cortisol levels were. He didn't even know what cortisol was, and it's like, well, yeah, it's because the wrestling mentality is you grind until there's one man standing, and hopefully you're the one that's got the fortitude to be the last person standing. And
if you're not, you got to get better and go harder.
Yeah, even if you're winning.
Yeah, dude. Always the answer to everything is we got to get better and we got to go harder.
Yeah, and that, I mean, there's some truth to you got to get better. You know what I mean? Like, you can always find faults in your in anything, and you never really learn from your victories anyway. But you definitely don't always have to go harder. No,
not at all. Never. And I think it's systematic when to go hard. And if you have a good coach, that's when you're going to peak right and do. And honestly, the best coach I ever had with that was Mike, because he made sure that, like, I took a month off in the summer. He made sure that in the middle of the season when I was getting all moody, he was like, hey, take 2 weeks off. He was like that one coach that I had that knew that. And it was funny, like, going in, because, like, we only went live, like, once or twice a week, and when you're growing up at Sure Thing or at the Borough, we're going live every day, and you have that mindset where we got to go hard, we got to go live all the time. And then when I had someone like Mike, who focused more on the technique aspect and just drilling, I took whatever it was, 2.5 years off from wrestling, but when I got back on that mat, it was like I didn't miss a beat, because I actually had a coach who kind of had a systematic approach compared to others, and definitely worked for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, and that's the thing too, unless there's a coach that's really putting the emphasis on drill work and why you're doing it and how to do it the right way. Like, I can remember just all I wanted to do was go live, you know what I mean? And that's just, it's the same thing like with shitty running mechanics, just running all the time. It's just reinforcing poor movement patterns, and just going live and isn't, you're not training good movements and good positions. And, that's, it seems like though it's getting a little bit better in that regard in the overall. I don't know if it's the internet or I think a lot of it has to do with the internet, that people are just getting smarter because there's more information out there provided. And you see guys like Robbie Lawler, who doesn't even reports that he doesn't even spar anymore.
Well, yeah, and I feel like someone like Robbie Lawler, who's been doing it for so long, like, there's got to be diminishing returns on that guy going to the gym, 3 out of 5 days a week, going hard. You got to think that his technique and everything is to a point where it's going to be, so why not just kind of sharpen that, I don't see, especially as you get older in age in a combat sport, you kind of got to preserve the body. There's a reason why there's a handful of dudes like Randy Couture and Dan Henderson who've done it late into their late 40s. Now, could it be because modern medicine? Yeah, sure, those dudes had some help, but it's also because those dudes were high caliber athletes and took care of their body their whole career.
Yeah, for sure. It's a combination of a lot of things, but definitely all goes back to being intelligent about how you're training, how you're treating your body, and what you're putting in your body. all that stuff makes a difference. And you can get away with a lot of shit when you're younger, and as you get older, you start to, you really find out how much you really care about what you're doing and how much you really love what you're doing, because, when you get hurt or when you have to take it down a notch, you can just forget about it and move on and do something else, or you start learning how to do things better and perform better and not beat yourself up trying to do that.
Yeah, just definitely from dealing what I was dealing with the neck, it's like there's two things you could do. You could either just say, I'm over it and I'm just going to let this hurt neck stop me, or it's like, all right, well, I got to think of how I got to this situation and how I can change this and change this from happening. And the answer pretty much always comes back to you, right? It always comes back to what you're gonna do, the plan you set forth to kind of to implement that stuff, right? Or are you just gonna kind of let it get better? Because I've hurt my shoulder numerous times from wrestling throughout the years, but I never really rehabbed it or prehabbed it, and then, I'm 29 and I hurt it again, and it's like, well, you've had this lingering thing that you kind of just let time heal it, but you and I both know if you're not strengthening those muscles that you shut off, that you hurt, then they're never going to turn back on, and then you're just going to have a lingering problem.
Totally. We might have a meltdown coming up here shortly with the dogs, but we've got about 3 minutes to go.
All right.
And I wanted to hear about your exciting Facebook friend request.
Oh, dude, I don't know if we should talk about that.
No?
People listen to this, man. I don't want to sound like a mark.
All right, well, then I guess we could, I could tell you about Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, tell me about Dave Chappelle.
It was pretty good. He had two bits that had me pissing my pants, like falling out of my chair.
Oh my god, it was hilarious.
Yeah, he was...
Could have been the edibles.
Could have been. He's pretty fucking yoked, too, dude. Like, he's not that skinny dude from Half Baked anymore, dude. He came out in a tank top and, like... Dude had some pythons on him, for sure. Respect to Dave Chappelle getting his shit together.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, I got muscles.
Dude, he was big. Like, I was surprised. Like,
it was probably 30 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, I always thought it looked at him as, like, skinny, like, dude. But dude came out in a tank top and was, like, yoked. I don't want to give away his bit and all, but... He had this bit about a male gynecologist and how it's a conflict of interest, because how can a guy that has access to vagina like that resist the urge to smell his fingers? And it was a conflict of interest. Dude, I was dying. And then the other one he closed with was about like how like you how like you grunt, like, like when you're finishing it off to completion, you're just like and it's just funny because it's true.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, but dude, it was cool. And then it was funny because like they send out the thing like, don't bring your cell phone. Cell phones are not going to be allowed, and if you have your cell phone, we're going to lock it up in the bag and this and that. And so of course, like, I downloaded the app and had my phone tickets sent to my phone, so I couldn't get on to Ticketmaster to print them. So like I'm like panicking and like looking to see, like, I'm like, fuck, all these people have tickets, and like, so we go in and they have these cool little like neoprene pouches that you put your phone in, and then they put like a magnet on it that pinches it closed so you can't get into it.
Like a clothing alarm.
Yeah, like a sensor for like a clothing. But so before we left, I told April the ticket, the seats and everything, and then we, did what we had to do to enjoy the show a little bit more. And I turned my phone off and put it in the thing, and he locked it, and we walked in, and I was like, fuck, I forgot where the seats are. But luckily she remembered, so we didn't have any problem. But I just like had like this panic of like, oh, fucking classic Rich Airey. Like,
You got
Oh
anxiety.
man, cause I got high.